The stagecoach wheels had barely stopped turning when Olivia Ashford collapsed onto the dusty street of Shoshone City, Idaho, her skin burning hot as the August sun above. The driver jumped down, his weathered face creasing with concern as he knelt beside the young woman, who had spent the last 2 days of their journey growing steadily worse. Her chestnut hair was plastered to her forehead with sweat, and her emerald eyes, when they fluttered open, held a glassy, unfocused quality that spoke of serious illness. "Someone get the doc," the driver shouted to the gathering crowd. "This lady needs help." Yates Kirby had been loading supplies onto his wagon when he heard the commotion. The tall cowboy, 26 years old and as capable as they came in these parts, pushed through the small cluster of onlookers to see what the fuss was about. When his gray eyes landed on the woman lying in the street, something in his chest tightened. She could not have been more than 22 or 23, and she was clearly in bad shape. "Doc Henderson rode out to the Miller Ranch this morning," said Martha Cooper, the general store owner. "He will not be back until tomorrow at the earliest." Yates made a decision in that instant. He bent down and carefully lifted Olivia into his arms, surprised by how light she felt, how fragile. Her head lolled against his shoulder, and he could feel the heat radiating from her body through his shirt. "I will take her to my place," he announced. "It is not much, but it is clean and cool. Someone send word to Doc Henderson the moment he gets back." "You sure about that, Yates?" asked Harold Jenkins, the blacksmith. "That is a mighty big responsibility, taking in a sick stranger." "Cannot just leave her in the street," Yates replied, his tone brooking no argument. He looked down at the woman in his arms, noting the fine quality of her traveling dress, now wrinkled and stained with dust. "Did she have any luggage?" "2 trunks," the driver said, pointing to the bags strapped to the back of the stage. "She paid good money to get here from St. Louis. Said she was supposed to meet someone, but she did not say who." "Bring them to my ranch," Yates instructed. "It is the property about 2 miles north, past the creek." Without waiting for further discussion, Yates carried Olivia to his wagon and settled her as gently as he could on the bench seat. She moaned softly, her head turning from side to side, and he heard her mumble something that sounded like "please, no more." His ranch was modest compared to some of the larger spreads in the territory, but Yates had built every structure on it with his own hands over the past 4 years. The main house was a sturdy cabin with 2 rooms, a front porch where he liked to sit in the evenings, and a well that provided the coldest, cleanest water for miles around. He carried Olivia inside and laid her on his bed, the only real bed in the house. The room was dim and cooler than outside, the thick log walls keeping out the worst of the summer heat. Her breathing was rapid and shallow, and when he pressed the back of his hand to her forehead, he pulled it away quickly. She was burning up. Yates had seen fever before. He had lost his younger sister to scarlet fever when he was 16, and the memory of watching her waste away while feeling helpless still haunted him. He would not let that happen again, not if he could prevent it. He fetched a bucket of cool water from the well and several clean cloths. Returning to the bedside, he dampened one of the cloths and carefully began to wipe her face. Her eyes fluttered open briefly, and she looked at him with confusion and fear. "Where am I?" she whispered, her voice hoarse and barely audible. "You are safe," Yates said softly, continuing to cool her brow with the damp cloth. "You are at my ranch outside Shoshone City. You took ill on the stage." "I cannot remember," she murmured, her eyes closing again. "So hot, everything hurts." "I know. I am going to help you, miss. Just rest now." Over the next hour, Yates worked methodically to bring down her fever. He refreshed the cloths constantly, wiping her face, her neck, her wrists. He managed to get her to swallow a few sips of water. When she began to shiver despite the heat radiating from her skin, he covered her with a light sheet. As evening approached, there was a knock at the door. It was young Timothy Walsh, the 15-year-old son of the livery owner, struggling with one of Olivia's trunks. "The driver said to bring these out here," Timothy explained. "The other one is still in the wagon, too heavy for me to lift alone." "I will get it," Yates said. He helped Timothy bring the first trunk inside, then went out to retrieve the second. Both were well-made leather with brass fittings, the kind that spoke of money and education. Who was this woman and what had brought her all the way to Idaho territory? After Timothy left, Yates returned to his patient. She was restless now, tossing her head and muttering words he could not quite make out. He resumed his vigil, cooling her brow, trying to get her to drink water whenever she seemed even slightly conscious. Night fell, and Yates lit a single lamp, keeping it dim so it would not disturb her. He pulled a chair close to the bed and settled in, the damp cloth in his hand, ready to refresh it at a moment's notice. Her face, even ravaged by fever, was beautiful. High cheekbones, a delicate nose, lips that even cracked and dry held a pleasing shape. But more than her physical appearance, there was something about her that called to him, a quality he could not name but felt deeply in his bones. "Please," she whispered suddenly, her eyes opening and focusing on him with startling clarity. "Please do not let them find me." "Who?" Yates asked gently. "Who are you afraid of?" But she had already slipped back into feverish dreams, her words becoming incomprehensible again. Yates frowned. Was she running from something? Someone? The questions multiplied in his mind, but they would have to wait. Right now, all that mattered was keeping her alive. He dozed fitfully in the chair throughout the night, waking frequently to check on her and refresh the cloths. Toward dawn, he noticed a change. She seemed to be resting more quietly, her breathing deeper and more regular. When he touched her forehead, it was still hot, but perhaps not quite as scorching as before. The morning sun was painting the sky pink and gold when her eyes opened again. This time, they held more awareness, though she was clearly still very ill. "Water," she croaked. Yates quickly poured water from the pitcher into a cup and helped her sit up enough to drink. She took several sips, then fell back against the pillow, exhausted by even that small effort. "Thank you," she whispered. "You are very kind." "What is your name?" Yates asked. Olivia Ashford." She looked around the room with confusion. "Where am I?" "My ranch outside Shoshone City. I am Yates Kirby. You arrived on the stage yesterday, already sick with fever. There was no doctor available, so I brought you here." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I do not remember. I remember being so hot and the stage bouncing and feeling like I might die." "You are going to be fine," Yates assured her, though he was not entirely certain of that. "Doc Henderson should be back today. I will have someone fetch him." "I cannot pay you," Olivia said, her voice breaking. "I had money, but it was stolen in Denver. I only had enough left for the stage fare and a little food. My trunks have my belongings, but nothing of value to sell." "Hush now," Yates said firmly. "We will worry about all that later. Right now, you need to rest and get well." He cooled her brow again with a fresh cloth, and she closed her eyes, a single tear escaping to roll down her temple. Yates wiped it away gently, his heart aching for this mysterious woman who had literally fallen into his life. By mid-morning, her fever spiked again, and Yates renewed his efforts with the cool water. He talked to her softly as he worked, telling her about his ranch, his horses, the mountains that rose majestically to the north. He did not know if she could hear him, but he hoped his voice might provide some comfort in her delirium. It was early afternoon when Doc Henderson finally arrived, his medical bag in hand and concern etched on his weathered face. Arthur Henderson had been practicing medicine for 30 years, first in Chicago and then, after his wife died, out here in the territories where doctors were desperately needed. "Let me have a look at her," Doc Henderson said, setting his bag on the small table near the bed. Yates stepped back, watching anxiously as the doctor examined Olivia. He listened to her heart and lungs, looked at her eyes and throat, felt the glands in her neck. "How long has she been like this?" Doc Henderson asked. The stage driver said she started feeling poorly 2 days ago, but yesterday when she arrived, she could barely stand. The fever has been high ever since, though I think it came down a bit this morning. "You did well, keeping her cool," the doctor said. "Likely saved her life." "This looks like typhoid fever to me, though I cannot be certain without seeing how it develops. Could also be malaria or any number of other ailments. The good news is she is young and appears to have been healthy before this struck. That gives her a fighting chance. What do I need to do?" Yates asked. Doc Henderson looked at him with raised eyebrows. "You are planning to continue caring for her, unless you know of somewhere better for her to go," Yates replied. "She has no family here, no money, nobody expecting her as far as I can tell. She could go to the boarding house, I suppose, but Mrs. Patterson already has her hands full, and frankly, you have done an excellent job so far." The doctor pulled several small packets from his bag. "Mix this powder in water and get her to drink it 3 times a day. It will help bring down the fever. Keep doing what you have been doing with the cool cloths. Try to get her to eat if she will, but do not force it. Broth would be best, something easy to digest, and make sure she drinks as much water as possible." "Will she make it?" Yates asked quietly. "I have seen people recover from worse, and I have seen people die from less," Doc Henderson said honestly. "But she has you looking after her, and that is worth more than any medicine I can provide. The next few days will tell the tale." After the doctor left, Yates set about following his instructions. He mixed the powder into water and managed to get Olivia to swallow it, though she was barely conscious. Then he went to his small kitchen and put together a pot of chicken broth, using one of his laying hens that had stopped producing eggs. It seemed a small sacrifice if it might help save her life. As the broth simmered, Yates found himself thinking about the strangeness of the situation. 3 days ago, he had never heard of Olivia Ashford. Now she was lying in his bed, dependent on him for her very survival, and he found himself caring deeply about what happened to her. It made no logical sense, yet there it was. He brought her broth when it was ready, spooning small amounts into her mouth and waiting patiently while she swallowed. She managed perhaps a quarter cup before turning her head away, too exhausted to continue. "You did well," he told her softly. "Rest now." The days that followed fell into a rhythm. Yates would wake before dawn and check on Olivia first thing. He would give her the medicine, try to get her to eat a little broth or thin porridge, and spend hours cooling her fevered skin with damp cloths. Then he would rush through his ranch work, tending to his horses and cattle with far less attention than they deserved, before hurrying back to the house to care for her. His neighbors began to talk, of course. In a small town like Shoshone City, a bachelor cowboy caring for a young, unmarried woman was bound to generate gossip. Martha Cooper came out to the ranch on the 3rd day, ostensibly to deliver some supplies but really to check on the propriety of the situation. "People are wondering," she said delicately, "about the arrangements here. The arrangement is that a woman was dying and I am trying to keep her alive," Yates said flatly. "Anyone who has a problem with that can come tell me to my face." Martha softened. "No one doubts your intentions, Yates. We all know you are a good man, but you must understand how it looks. I understand that if I had left her in the street or sent her to the boarding house where nobody had time to care for her properly, she would likely be dead now," Yates replied. "My conscience is clear, Martha. I hope everyone else's is too." After Martha left, Yates returned to find Olivia awake and looking at him with clear eyes for the first time since she had arrived. "I heard voices," she said. "Was someone here? Just Mrs. Cooper from the general store," Yates said, pulling the chair close to the bed. "She brought some supplies." "How are you feeling?" "Weak," Olivia admitted. "But better, I think. The room is not spinning anymore and I do not feel like I am on fire." "Your fever broke this morning," Yates told her, unable to keep the relief from his voice. "Doc Henderson said that was a good sign." Olivia looked around the room properly for the first time. "This is your bedroom, is it not? Where have you been sleeping?" "I made a pallet in the other room." "It is fine. I have put you out of your own bed, disrupted your entire life," she said, distress evident in her voice. "I am so sorry." "You did not choose to get sick," Yates said gently, "and I chose to bring you here, no apologies necessary." "Why?" she asked, searching his face. "Why would you do this for a complete stranger?" Yates was quiet for a moment, considering the question. "My sister died of fever when I was younger. I could not help her, no matter how much I wanted to. I guess I needed to know I could help someone." "I am sorry about your sister," Olivia said softly. "What was her name?" "Emma. She was only 13. Yates found himself sharing more than he usually did. "It about killed my mother. She was never the same after. My father turned to drink. I left home as soon as I could and eventually made my way out here." "Do you ever see them?" "My father died 5 years ago. Liver gave out. My mother remarried a good man who treats her well. She is happy now, or as happy as she can be. I visit when I can." They talked for a while longer, until Olivia's eyelids began to droop. Yates left her to rest and went outside to tackle some of the ranch work he had been neglecting. His horses needed attention, fences needed mending, and his cattle had wandered farther than he liked. He was repairing a section of fence when he saw a rider approaching. As the figure drew closer, he recognized Samuel Hart, one of the larger ranchers in the area, and a man Yates had never particularly liked. Hart was in his mid-40s, wealthy, and accustomed to getting what he wanted. "Kirby," Hart said, reining in his horse, "heard you have got a young woman staying at your place." "News travels fast," Yates replied, not pausing in his work. "I also heard she is unmarried, well-bred, and quite pretty." Hart dismounted and walked over, his expression calculating. "A woman like that should not be staying alone with a bachelor. It is not proper. She has been sick with fever. She needed care." "I am sure she did. And now that she is recovering, perhaps she should be moved to more appropriate accommodations. I would be happy to have her stay at my ranch. My housekeeper could act as chaperone, and she would be well looked after." Yates straightened, meeting Hart's eyes directly. "That is mighty generous of you, but I think Miss Ashford will make her own decisions about where she wants to stay once she is well enough." "Miss Ashford, is it?" "You have gotten quite familiar." Hart's smile did not reach his eyes. "Just trying to help, Kirby. A man like you working a small spread like this probably cannot afford the extra mouth to feed anyway. I have resources. I could provide for her properly." "I manage just fine," Yates said coldly. "And like I said, it will be her decision." Hart studied him for a long moment, then shrugged. "Suit yourself, but do not say I did not offer." He mounted his horse and rode off, leaving Yates with a bad feeling in his gut. When Yates returned to the house that evening, he found Olivia sitting up in bed, looking much improved though still pale and weak. She had clearly made an effort to tidy her hair, which now fell in loose waves around her shoulders. "You look better," Yates said with a smile. "I feel almost human again," Olivia replied. "Weak as a kitten, but human. I even managed to stand for a moment, though my legs felt like water. Doc Henderson said it would take time to get your strength back. Do not push too hard." He brought her fresh broth and bread, pleased when she ate with more appetite than she had shown before. "Will you tell me about yourself?" she asked when she had finished eating. "I feel like I know so little about the man who saved my life." So Yates talked, telling her about growing up in Ohio, about learning to work with horses from his grandfather, about the yearning for open spaces and freedom that had eventually led him west. He told her about the years working as a ranch hand, saving every penny until he could afford to buy this land and start building something of his own. "It is not much yet," he admitted, "but it is mine. Every fence post, every board in this house, I put it here with my own hands. Someday I hope to have one of the finest horse ranches in Idaho." "I think that is wonderful," Olivia said. "Building something from nothing, creating your own future, that takes courage." "What about you?" Yates asked. "What brought you all the way out here from St. Louis?" Olivia's expression became guarded. "That is a longer story and perhaps one for another day. I am suddenly very tired." Yates did not push, though his curiosity was certainly aroused. "Rest then. We have plenty of time." Over the next week, Olivia grew steadily stronger. She graduated from bed to sitting in a chair by the window, then to walking around the cabin, then finally to sitting on the front porch in the evenings. Yates had never enjoyed those evening hours more. They would sit together, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and purple, and talk about everything and nothing. He learned that she loved books and had once dreamed of becoming a teacher, that she had a beautiful singing voice, though she was too shy to sing for him yet, that she found the mountains breathtaking, and the wide open spaces both thrilling and slightly terrifying after a lifetime of city living. She learned that he had a gentle way with animals that bordered on magical, that he could fix almost anything with enough time and determination, that he carried deep hurts from his past, but tried to focus on building a better future. What neither of them acknowledged, though both were increasingly aware of it, was the growing connection between them. The way their eyes would meet and hold for a moment too long. The care with which he would offer his hand to help her up, and the reluctance with which she would let go. The comfortable silences that spoke of a deepening understanding. It was Martha Cooper who finally forced the issue. She arrived one afternoon with a basket of baked goods and a determined expression. "Olivia, dear," she said, settling herself at the kitchen table, "you are looking so much better. I am glad to see it." "Thank you, Mrs. Cooper. Mr. Kirby has taken excellent care of me." "I am sure he has." "Which brings me to why I am here." Martha folded her hands on the table. "People in town are talking, dear. A young, unmarried woman living alone with a bachelor, even under these circumstances, it creates talk. Now that you are well enough, perhaps it is time to make other arrangements." Olivia flushed. "I have been thinking about that. I need to find work, somewhere to live. The problem is I have no money. Everything I had was stolen in Denver." "What kind of work are you looking for?" Martha asked. "I was a teacher back in St. Louis," Olivia said. "But I would take any honest work. I can keep house, cook, sew. I am not afraid of hard work." "The school here could use a teacher," Martha said thoughtfully. "Miss Peterson left to get married last month, and we have been making do with various mothers taking turns. It does not pay much, but it includes a small room behind the schoolhouse." Yates, who had been standing quietly in the doorway, felt something twist in his chest at the thought of Olivia leaving. But he knew Martha was right. For Olivia's sake, she needed to be seen as independent and respectable. "That sounds perfect," Olivia said, though Yates noticed she did not sound entirely happy about it. "When could I start?" "I would need to talk to the school board, but I imagine as soon as you are feeling strong enough." "Perhaps another week or two." Martha stood, clearly pleased with herself. "I will make the arrangements." After Martha left, an awkward silence fell over the cabin. Yates busied himself with putting away the baked goods while Olivia stared out the window. "I suppose she is right," Olivia said finally. "I cannot stay here indefinitely. People will think poorly of you." "I do not care what people think," Yates said more sharply than he intended. Then, more gently, "But I want what is best for you. If teaching is what you want, then I am happy for you." "Is it what you want?" The question was soft, almost hesitant. "For me to leave?" Yates turned to look at her, this woman who had come into his life in such an unexpected way and changed everything. "No," he said honestly. "But what I want does not matter. You need to build a life here, establish yourself properly. The teaching position would be perfect for you." "Yes," Olivia agreed quietly. "It would be perfect." But neither of them sounded convinced. That night, Olivia finally told Yates her story. They were sitting on the porch, the stars brilliant overhead, and she had been unusually quiet all evening. "I need to tell you why I came to Idaho," she said suddenly. "You deserve to know." Yates waited, giving her time to find the words. "I was engaged to be married," she began, "to a man named Charles Dennison. He was wealthy, from a good family, everything my parents wanted for me. The problem was, I did not love him. I tried to convince myself I could learn to, that respect and compatibility were enough. But as the wedding grew closer, I became more and more certain I was making a terrible mistake." She took a shaky breath. "Charles was not a kind man. He never hit me, nothing like that, but he was controlling. He made it clear that once we were married, I would live according to his rules. No teaching, which I loved. No keeping company with friends he did not approve of. I would be expected to host his parties, bear his children, and otherwise keep quiet and look pretty." "So you ran," Yates said. "I ran. I had a small inheritance from my grandmother that my parents did not control. I took it and bought a ticket as far from St. Louis as I could get. I thought Idaho was remote enough that Charles would never find me. But in Denver, while I was sleeping at a boarding house, someone stole most of my money. I barely had enough left to get here. Does he know where you are? I do not think so. I was very careful. I told no one my plans, not even my closest friends. My parents will be furious, but they cannot force me back. I am 23, legally an adult." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "I know it was cowardly, running instead of facing them, but I could not see another way." "It was not cowardly," Yates said firmly. "It took courage to walk away from everything you knew to build a new life. I admire that." "Do you? I left my family, broke my word to a man who expected to marry me, scandalized everyone who knew me. Some would call that dishonorable. Some would be wrong." Yates reached over and took her hand, a gesture that felt both natural and momentous. "You chose freedom over a lifetime of unhappiness. That is not dishonorable. That is brave." Olivia looked down at their joined hands, then back up at his face. "You are unlike any man I have ever known, Yates Kirby." "I hope that is a good thing," he said with a slight smile. "It is a very good thing." They sat like that for a long time, hands clasped, looking out at the star-filled sky. Something had shifted between them, an acknowledgement of feelings that had been growing since the moment he had lifted her into his arms on that dusty street. 2 weeks later, Olivia moved into the small room behind the schoolhouse. Yates helped her transport her trunks, and half the town turned out to meet their new teacher. She was an instant hit. The children loved her patient teaching style and the way she made learning seem like an adventure rather than a chore. The parents appreciated her dedication, and the fact that she treated even the poorest children with the same respect she showed the wealthier ones. But Yates missed her terribly. The cabin felt empty without her presence. His evening meals were quiet and lonely. Even his horses seemed to sense something was wrong, the way they would nicker softly when he came to the barn, as if asking where she had gone. He found excuses to go into town more often than necessary. He would stop by the school on the pretense of delivering eggs or vegetables from his garden. Olivia would smile when she saw him, her whole face lighting up in a way that made his heart beat faster. They would talk for a few minutes, carefully proper in case anyone was watching, but their eyes said everything their words could not. Samuel Hart, Yates noticed, had also become a frequent visitor to the schoolhouse. He would arrive in his fancy buggy, bringing gifts for the school and making a show of his generosity. Olivia was always polite to him but never encouraging, a fact that seemed only to increase Hart's determination. It came to a head one afternoon when Yates arrived at the school to find Hart's buggy already there. Through the window, he could see Hart standing too close to Olivia, backing her against her desk. He could not hear the words, but he could see the discomfort on her face. Yates was through the door in seconds. "Miss Ashford," he said loudly, "I brought those books you asked for." Hart stepped back, his expression thunderous. "We were having a private conversation, Kirby." "School day is over," Yates observed, noting that all the children had indeed left. "Maybe Miss Ashford would appreciate you respecting that her work is done and her time is her own." "I was just inviting Miss Ashford to dinner at my ranch," Hart said smoothly. "A proper social occasion with my housekeeper as chaperone, of course." "That is very kind, Mr. Hart," Olivia said, moving away from the desk to stand closer to Yates. "But I am afraid I must decline. I have other commitments this evening." "With Kirby, I suppose," Hart said, his tone turning nasty. "You turned down a respectable offer from a man of means to spend time with a dirt farmer barely scraping by on a patch of land and some half-wild horses." "That is enough," Yates said, his voice dangerously quiet. "You will speak respectfully to Miss Ashford or you will leave. Now." Hart looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Yates's expression made him reconsider. "This is not over," he said, grabbing his hat and stalking out after he left. Olivia sagged against the desk. "Thank you. He has been increasingly persistent lately. I have tried to discourage him politely, but he does not seem to take no for an answer." "Did he hurt you?" Yates asked, fighting to keep his anger in check. "No, just frightened me a bit. He grabbed my wrist when I tried to move away, but he let go when he heard you coming." She rubbed her wrist absently, and Yates could see the red marks from Hart's fingers. Something fierce and protective rose up in Yates. "If he bothers you again, you tell me immediately. Promise me." "I promise." Olivia looked up at him, her green eyes searching his face. "Yates, there is something I need to ask you, something I have been thinking about for a while now." "What is it?" "Why do you come to town so often? You never used to, everyone has noticed. Martha asked me about it the other day." Yates could have made up an excuse, but he was tired of pretending. "I come to see you," he said simply. "I know I should not. I know people will talk, but I cannot seem to help myself. I miss you, Olivia. The cabin feels wrong without you in it." Olivia's breath caught. "I miss you too, every day. Teaching is wonderful, and I am grateful for the opportunity. But when I am in that little room at night, all I can think about is sitting on your porch watching the sunset, or listening to you talk about your plans for the ranch, or the way you would smile when I managed to eat a whole bowl of broth." "Then why are we doing this?" Yates asked, closing the distance between them. "Why are we pretending we do not care for each other when we clearly do? Because people will talk. Because it has only been a few months. Because I do not want to ruin your reputation or mine." But even as she listed the reasons, Olivia was looking at his lips, leaning toward him almost imperceptibly. "I do not care about any of that," Yates said. His hand came up to cup her cheek, and she leaned into the touch like a flower turning toward the sun. "I care about you. I think I have cared about you since the moment I saw you lying in that dusty street, looking so small and vulnerable. These past months have only made those feelings stronger. Yates, she whispered, and then his lips were on hers. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, a question and an answer all at once. But then Olivia's arms came up around his neck, and Yates pulled her closer, and the kiss deepened into something that spoke of all the longing and loneliness and hope they both had been harboring. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. Olivia rested her forehead against his chest, and Yates held her close, marveling at how perfectly she fit in his arms. "What do we do now?" she asked softly. "Now," Yates said, tilting her chin up so he could look into her eyes, "we stop hiding how we feel. I want to court you properly, Olivia Ashford. I want to take you to church socials and town dances. I want everyone to know that you are the woman I am falling in love with, falling in love." Olivia repeated, her eyes shining with tears. "Is that all right?" Yates asked, suddenly uncertain. "It is more than all right," she said, standing on her toes to kiss him again, "because I am falling in love with you too." The courtship that followed was the talk of Shoshone City for months. Yates was attentive and devoted, bringing Olivia flowers he picked from the meadows near his ranch, taking her on rides through the mountains when school was not in session, sitting in the front row at every school recital and event. Olivia bloomed under his attention. The pale, sickly woman who had arrived months ago was gone, replaced by someone vibrant and joyful. She laughed more, smiled constantly, and threw herself into her teaching with renewed energy. Not everyone was happy about the relationship. Samuel Hart made his displeasure known, spreading rumors about Yates's financial situation, and suggesting that Olivia could do much better. But the rumors found little purchase in a town that had watched Yates care for a dying stranger and had seen the genuine affection between the couple. As autumn turned to winter, Yates knew it was time to take the next step. He had been saving money, adding to his herd, making improvements to the ranch. But more importantly, he had been planning how to ask Olivia to be his wife. He chose a Sunday afternoon in December. The first snow of the season had fallen the night before, transforming the landscape into something magical. He had invited Olivia out to the ranch for dinner, a common enough occurrence that it would not raise eyebrows. But when she arrived, she found the cabin transformed. He had hung evergreen boughs around the door and windows. A fire crackled in the hearth, and the table was set with his best dishes. He had even managed to cook a respectable meal of roast chicken and vegetables. "Yates, this is beautiful," Olivia said, taking in the scene with wonder. "I wanted tonight to be special," he said, helping her out of her coat. They ate dinner, talking and laughing as they always did. But when the meal was finished and the dishes cleared away, Yates took Olivia's hand and led her to the window. "You remember the first time you sat here?" he asked, both of them looking out at the snow-covered landscape. "I do. I was so weak I could barely stand, but you helped me to this chair. We watched the sunset together." "I knew then," Yates said quietly. "I knew you were going to change my life. I just did not realize how much." He turned to face her, still holding her hand. "Before you came, I was content with my life. I had my ranch, my plans, my routines. It was enough. But now the idea of going back to that life, of living here without you, is unbearable." Olivia's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Yates, what are you saying?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Inside was a simple gold band with a small but perfect diamond. "I am saying that I love you, Olivia Ashford. I love your courage and your kindness and the way you make every day brighter just by being in it. I am saying that I want to spend the rest of my life with you if you will have me. Will you marry me?" "Yes," Olivia said, tears now streaming down her face. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Yates slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms and kissed her with all the love and joy and promise he felt. When they finally broke apart, both were crying and laughing at the same time. "I love you," Olivia said, over and over. "I love you so much." "I love you too," Yates replied, holding her close. "Forever." They decided to marry in the spring, giving Olivia time to finish out the school year and Yates time to prepare the ranch for a wife. They broke the news to the town the following Sunday at church, and while there were a few sour faces, most people were genuinely happy for them. Martha Cooper appointed herself the unofficial wedding planner, coordinating with the other women in town to make sure Olivia had everything she needed. A dress was commissioned from the finest seamstress in the county. Plans were made for a reception in the church hall. Samuel Hart, upon hearing the news, made one last attempt to change Olivia's mind. He appeared at the school one afternoon with an elaborate bouquet of flowers and a speech about how he could provide for her in ways Yates never could. Olivia listened politely, then handed him back the flowers. "Mr. Hart, I appreciate your interest, but my answer is no. It has always been no. I love Yates and I am going to marry him. I would appreciate it if you would respect that and move on." Hart's face darkened. "You are making a mistake. That ranch of his will fail within 5 years. He does not have the capital or the connections to make it work. You will be lucky if you do not starve." "Then I will starve with the man I love," Olivia said firmly, "rather than live in luxury with someone I do not. Now please leave. I have papers to grade." Hart left, but not before making vague threats about Yates regretting this decision. Olivia reported the conversation to Yates that evening, and while he was angry at Hart's behavior, he was also proud of how Olivia had handled herself. "You do not have to worry about me," he assured her. "The ranch is doing well. I have been conservative in my spending and smart about my investments. We will not be rich, but we will be comfortable." "I do not care about being rich," Olivia said. "I just want to be with you." Winter gave way to spring, and the wedding day arrived on a perfect April morning. The church was packed with well-wishers, and Olivia looked radiant in her white dress, her chestnut hair adorned with wildflowers. Yates, in his best suit, felt his throat tighten when he saw her walking down the aisle toward him. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. They exchanged vows and rings, and when the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Yates kissed his bride to cheers and applause from the assembled guests. The reception was a joyous affair with music and dancing and more food than anyone could possibly eat. As Yates and Olivia took their first dance as a married couple, he pulled her close and whispered in her ear, "Happy, Mrs. Kirby. Happier than I ever imagined possible," she whispered back. They spent their wedding night at the ranch, the cabin that had been the site of so many important moments in their relationship. Yates carried Olivia over the threshold, both of them laughing, and set her down gently in the middle of the room. "Welcome home," he said softly. "I have been home since the first time I woke up here and saw you cooling my brow," Olivia replied. "I just did not know it yet." Their lovemaking that night was tender and passionate, a physical expression of the deep emotional connection they had built over the past year. Afterward, they lay tangled together, talking and touching and planning their future. "I want children," Olivia said, her head resting on Yates's chest. "Lots of them." "How many is lots?" Yates asked with a chuckle. "I do not know, 4, 5, however many we are blessed with." She propped herself up on one elbow to look at him. "Is that all right with you?" "More than all right. I always wanted a big family, growing up with just Emma and me, and then after she died, it was so lonely." He stroked her hair gently. "I want this house filled with the sound of children laughing." "Then we will fill it," Olivia promised. The first years of their marriage were everything they had hoped for and more. Olivia gave up teaching when she became pregnant with their first child, a robust boy they named William. She poured her energy into making the ranch house a home, adding curtains and rugs and all the small touches that transformed the simple cabin into something warm and welcoming. Yates's horse breeding program began to pay off. His reputation for producing quality animals spread, and he found himself with more business than he could handle. He hired a young man named David to help with the ranch work, which gave him more time to spend with his growing family. Their second child, a daughter they named Sarah, arrived 2 years after William. She had Olivia's green eyes and Yates's dark hair, and she wrapped her father around her tiny finger from the moment she was born. 2 years after that came another boy, James, who was quiet and thoughtful even as a baby. The ranch prospered. Yates built a larger house to accommodate their growing family, though they kept the original cabin as a guest house and a reminder of where they had started. He expanded his herds, bought more land, and became one of the most respected ranchers in the area. Through it all, his love for Olivia only deepened. He never forgot the sight of her burning with fever, helpless and dependent on his care. It had forged something in him, a protective tenderness that colored everything he felt for her. And she never forgot waking up to find this kind, strong man dedicating himself to keeping her alive, asking nothing in return. Their love was the foundation on which everything else was built. When times were hard, when money was tight, when children were sick or crops failed or any of the 100 other challenges of frontier life arose, they faced it together. Their marriage was a partnership in the truest sense, each supporting and strengthening the other. By the time their fourth child, another girl named Emma after Yates's sister, was born, the ranch was thriving. They had a beautiful home, healthy children, respect in the community, and most importantly, each other. One evening, when Emma was about 6 months old, Yates and Olivia stood on the porch of their new house, watching the sunset just as they had so many times before. The children were inside with the hired girl who helped Olivia with the house and the youngest ones. It was a rare moment of quiet. "Do you ever regret it?" Yates asked, his arm around Olivia's waist. "Leaving St. Louis, everything you knew to come out here?" "Not for a single second," Olivia replied without hesitation. "If I had stayed, I would have married Charles and been miserable. I never would have known what real love felt like. I never would have had our children or built this life." She turned to look up at him. "Coming here, getting sick, falling into your capable hands, it was the best thing that ever happened to me." "I am pretty sure nearly dying of fever was not the best thing," Yates said with a smile. "But it brought me to you," Olivia countered. "It gave me a reason to trust you, to see the kind of man you are. If I had arrived healthy, I might have just passed through town or taken a job somewhere else. We might never have truly met. I prefer to think fate would have brought us together one way or another," Yates said. "Some things are just meant to be. Like you cooling my brow and warming my heart," Olivia said softly. Yates pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "Forever," he promised, as he had promised so many times before. "Forever," Olivia echoed. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of gold and crimson, they stood together in comfortable silence. Inside the house, they could hear William and Sarah laughing over some shared joke, and baby Emma's happy babbling. The ranch stretched out around them, the physical manifestation of their shared dreams and hard work. The years continued to pass, each one bringing new joys and challenges. William grew into a capable young man who loved the ranch as much as his father did. Sarah proved to have a gift for handling horses that surpassed even Yates's considerable skill. James found his calling in books and learning, reminding Olivia of her own love of education. Young Emma was still finding her way, but she had a sweet nature and a talent for making everyone around her smile. When Olivia was 35, she gave birth to their fifth and final child, a boy they named Thomas. The pregnancy had been difficult, and the birth even more so. Doc Henderson, who was getting on in years but still practicing, had been frank with them afterward. "No more children," he said firmly. "Olivia is healthy now, but another pregnancy could be dangerous. You have 5 beautiful children. Be grateful for them." Yates held Olivia's hand as the doctor spoke, and afterward, when they were alone, she cried. "I know we should be grateful," she said, "and I am, but I always imagined 6 or 7 children, a house bursting with life." "5 is bursting with life," Yates assured her, wiping her tears. "And the doctor is right. I would rather have you healthy and here with me than risk losing you for another baby. I could not bear to lose you, Olivia. You are my whole heart." "You promise you are not disappointed?" she asked. "I promise. We have been blessed beyond measure. 5 healthy children, a successful ranch, each other. What more could anyone want?" As it turned out, the 5 children were indeed more than enough to keep the house lively. As they grew, the ranch became a gathering place for the community. Olivia's natural warmth and Yates's reputation for fairness made them popular hosts, and there was always someone stopping by for advice, assistance, or just friendly conversation. Samuel Hart, never one to forget a grudge, continued to cause trouble when he could. He spread rumors about Yates's business practices and tried to undercut his prices, but his efforts largely failed because people trusted the Kirbys. They had seen the integrity with which Yates conducted business and the kindness with which Olivia treated everyone. Eventually, Hart made a serious miscalculation. He was caught cheating another rancher in a cattle deal, and when the truth came out, his reputation was destroyed. He sold his ranch and left the area in disgrace. Yates felt no satisfaction in Hart's downfall, only relief that the man would no longer be able to hurt them or anyone else. As their children grew into young adults, Yates and Olivia took great pride in watching them find their own paths. William, now 21, was running much of the day-to-day operations of the ranch. He had also begun courting the daughter of a neighboring rancher, a sensible young woman named Catherine, who Olivia liked immensely. Sarah, at 19, had become known throughout the territory as one of the finest horse trainers around. She had a way with even the most difficult animals, and people would travel for days to have her work with their horses. She was independent and strong-willed, reminding Yates very much of her mother. James, 17, had been accepted to a teaching college in the East. It would be hard to see him go, but both Yates and Olivia were proud of his ambitions and supported his dreams of becoming a professor. 13-year-old Emma was at the awkward age, all long limbs and uncertainty, but she was showing signs of having inherited her father's business acumen. She loved helping with the books and had ideas about expanding the ranch's operations. Young Thomas, now 8, was still discovering who he would become, but he had a curious mind and a fearless nature that suggested he would do something interesting with his life. One spring evening, the whole family gathered for dinner, a tradition they maintained no matter how busy everyone was. The table Yates had built years ago groaned under the weight of the food Olivia and Sarah had prepared. William was talking about his plans to propose to Catherine, while James shared news about his upcoming departure for college. Emma was explaining a new accounting system she thought they should implement, and Thomas was regaling them with a story about a snake he had found that day. Yates sat at the head of the table, Olivia to his right, and looked around at the faces of his children. His heart was so full it almost hurt. This life, this family, It was everything he had ever wanted and so much more than he had ever dared to dream. After dinner, after the children had scattered to their various evening activities, Yates and Olivia walked out to the original cabin. They had furnished it simply but comfortably, and they sometimes came here when they wanted quiet time away from the bustle of the main house. "Do you remember the first night you spent here?" Yates asked, settling into one of the chairs by the window. "I remember fragments," Olivia said, sitting beside him. "Heat and confusion and fear, and your voice so calm and steady telling me I would be all right." "I was terrified you would not be," Yates admitted. "I had no idea what I was doing, I just knew I had to try to save you." "And you did," Olivia said, taking his hand. "You saved me in every way a person can be saved. You gave me life, love, purpose, everything." "You gave me the same," Yates replied. "Before you, I was just existing. Building my ranch, going through the motions, you made me come alive." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. They were in their late 40s now, their hair showing threads of gray, their faces marked by time and experience. But when Yates looked at Olivia, he still saw the beautiful woman he had fallen in love with. And when Olivia looked at Yates, she still felt her heart skip a beat just as it had all those years ago. "I love you," Yates said, as he had said countless times over the years. But it never got old, never felt routine. Each time he said it, he meant it with his whole heart. "I love you too," Olivia replied, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Forever and always." The years continued their steady march. William married Catherine in a beautiful ceremony, and within a year, presented Yates and Olivia with their first grandchild, a boy named Yates after his grandfather. The sight of his son holding his own son moved Yates to tears, a circle completing itself in the most wonderful way. Sarah eventually married as well, though not until she was 25, to a quiet rancher from Montana who respected her independence and shared her love of horses. They built their life together, splitting time between Idaho and Montana, and had 3 daughters who all inherited their mother's gift with animals. James became a professor of literature at a prestigious college in Boston. He never married, but he was happy in his work and came home to visit whenever he could, bringing with him fascinating stories of life in the East and gifts for his growing collection of nieces and nephews. Emma did marry, to a banker's son from Boise, and together they started several successful business ventures, always keeping close ties with the family ranch. She had 2 boys who were as sharp as their mother. Thomas, true to his adventurous nature, became a surveyor, traveling throughout the Western Territories, mapping land and having adventures. He would return home periodically with wild tales that Yates suspected were only partly true, but they made for excellent entertainment. Through all of this, Yates and Olivia remained the center around which the family orbited. The ranch continued to prosper under William's capable management, but Yates and Olivia were still very much involved, their wisdom and experience invaluable. When Yates was 55, he had a health scare that reminded them both of their mortality. He collapsed while working with a difficult horse, and Olivia found him unconscious in the barn. Doc Henderson's son, who had taken over his father's practice, diagnosed it as heat exhaustion exacerbated by overwork. "You are not a young man anymore, Yates," Dr. Henderson Jr. said bluntly. "You need to slow down, let William handle more of the physical labor." Yates grumbled about it, but Olivia put her foot down. "I did not nurse you through my fever just to lose you because you are too stubborn to take care of yourself," she said firmly. "You are going to listen to the doctor and you are going to pace yourself. Do I make myself clear?" "Yes, madam," Yates said with a smile, knowing better than to argue with her when she used that tone. He did slow down, reluctantly at first, but then finding he enjoyed having more time to spend with Olivia and their grandchildren. He became the grandfather who always had time for a story, or a ride or help with whatever project the little ones had dreamed up. On their 25th wedding anniversary, the whole family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. Olivia had planned most of it herself, with help from the older children, and the result was a joyous party that lasted all day and into the night. There was food and music and dancing. Stories were told and retold, each one polished by time into family legend. The children and grandchildren performed a play they had written about Yates and Olivia's courtship, which was surprisingly accurate in its details, and had both of them laughing and crying at the same time. As the evening drew to a close and the stars came out, Yates stood to make a toast. The whole family gathered around, 3 generations united by blood and love. 25 years ago, Yates began, his voice carrying in the quiet night air, I married the woman who changed my life. I knew then that I loved her, but I had no idea how that love would grow and deepen with every passing year. Olivia, you have given me everything. 5 incredible children, 14 grandchildren and counting, a life fuller and richer than I ever imagined possible. But more than any of that, you have given me yourself, your love, your partnership, your unwavering support. You are my best friend, my greatest love, my everything. He raised his glass. To my wife, my heart, my Olivia. May we have 25 more years together, and may they be as blessed as the first 25 have been. To Olivia, the family chorused, raising their glasses. Olivia was crying openly now, happy tears that Yates gently wiped away. You did not tell me you were making a speech, she scolded gently. Surprise, he said with a grin. Do you want to say something? Just this, Olivia said, standing beside him. When I got on that stagecoach in St. Louis all those years ago, I was running away. I was scared and alone and had no idea what the future held. But fate, or God, or whatever you want to call it, brought me here. It brought me to Yates, to this family, to this life. I arrived with fever, and this wonderful man cooled my brow and warmed my heart forever. I could not ask for more than what I have been given. I love you all so very much. The party continued late into the night, but eventually the guests began to disperse. The children helped clean up, then headed to their various accommodations, leaving Yates and Olivia alone under the stars. That was quite a party, Yates said, pulling Olivia close. It was perfect, she agreed, just like our life together. Not perfect, Yates corrected gently. We have had our struggles and our heartaches, but we have faced them together, and that has made all the difference. Together, Olivia repeated. That is the secret, is it not? Whatever comes, we face it together. Always, Yates promised. They stood there for a long time, holding each other and looking up at the vast expanse of stars overhead. The same stars that had shone down on them that first night when Olivia lay burning with fever and Yates sat vigil beside her bed. The same stars that had witnessed their first kiss, their wedding, the births of their children, and every moment of joy and sorrow in between. The years after their 25th anniversary were gentle ones. They continued to be active in their family and community, but at a slower pace. They treasured quiet moments together. Whether working in the garden Olivia had cultivated over the years, sitting on the porch as they had always loved to do, or visiting with their ever-growing collection of grandchildren. Doc Henderson Sr. passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 83, and Yates and Olivia attended the funeral, remembering the vital role he had played in their story. Without his medicines and advice during Olivia's illness, things might have turned out very differently. Martha Cooper also passed, and Olivia grieved for the woman who had been a friend and mentor to her when she first arrived in Shoshone City. She had been meddlesome at times, but always with good intentions and a kind heart. As they entered their 60s, both Yates and Olivia remained in relatively good health, though they moved more slowly and tired more easily. They had lived good lives, worked hard, loved deeply, and built something that would last long after they were gone. On a warm summer evening, when Yates was 68 and Olivia 65, they sat together on the porch of the original cabin, a ritual they had maintained throughout their marriage. The sunset was particularly spectacular that night, the sky ablaze with color. "Do you remember the first time we sat here and watched the sunset together?" Yates asked, though he knew she did. They had reminisced about it many times over the years. "I was so weak I could barely hold my head up," Olivia recalled. "But I remember thinking how beautiful it was, and how safe I felt with you beside me. I remember thinking I had never seen anything as beautiful as you, even sick and weak as you were," Yates said. "There was something about you that just captivated me from the very start." "It was meant to be," Olivia said softly. "All of it. The fever that brought me to you, the way you cared for me, the love that grew between us. It was all meant to be." "I believe that," Yates agreed. "I have believed it since the day I lifted you into my arms on that dusty street. You were meant to be mine, and I was meant to be yours." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun sank lower, the colors in the sky deepening and intensifying. Yates reached over and took Olivia's hand as he had done thousands of times before, and she laced her fingers through his. "No regrets?" he asked. "Not a single one," Olivia replied. Only that I did not have more time with you," Yates said. "A lifetime is not enough." "Then we will have to make the most of whatever time we have left," Olivia said practically, "starting with enjoying this beautiful sunset." And so they did, sitting together as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, then purple and deep blue as the stars began to emerge. Their hands remained clasped, their shoulders touching, their hearts beating in the same steady rhythm they had found all those years ago. They continued on for several more years, watching their family grow and thrive, secure in the knowledge that the legacy they were leaving was one of love, hard work, and devotion to family. William had become an even better rancher than his father, expanding the operation while maintaining the high standards Yates had established. The other children had all found their own success and happiness, and the grandchildren were growing up strong and capable. Yates passed away peacefully at the age of 73, with Olivia holding his hand and all of his children gathered around him. His last words were to his wife. "Thank you for the best life a man could have asked for. I love you." "I love you too," Olivia whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Forever and always." Olivia lived for 5 more years after Yates's death, staying active and involved with her family, but never quite the same without her beloved husband by her side. She would often sit on the porch of the original cabin in the evenings, looking at the sunset and talking to Yates as if he were still there beside her. When her time came, she was 75 years old and surrounded by the large, loving family she and Yates had created together. Her final words were, "I am coming, my love. Wait for me." They buried her beside Yates on a hill overlooking the ranch, under the shade of the oak tree they had planted on their 10th anniversary. The headstones were simple but elegant, and the inscription read, "Yates Kirby, beloved husband, father, and grandfather. He cooled her brow and warmed her heart forever. Olivia Ashford Kirby, beloved wife, mother, and grandmother. She arrived with fever and stayed with love." The ranch continued to thrive under William's management, and eventually passed to his son, young Yates, who proved to have inherited his grandfather's gift with horses and his grandmother's head for business. The original cabin was preserved as a family treasure, a reminder of where it all began. The story of Yates and Olivia became family legend, told and retold to each new generation. How she had arrived on that dusty street, burning with fever and near death. How he had taken her in, a complete stranger, and nursed her back to health with nothing but cool water, determination, and a heart full of compassion. How love had grown between them, tentative at first, then strong and deep and enduring. How they had built a life together, raised a family, created something that would last long after they were gone. Their great-great-grandchildren would visit the cabin, running their hands over the furniture Yates had made with his own hands, looking out the window where he and Olivia had watched so many sunsets together. They would stand by the graves on the hill and lay flowers there, keeping alive the memory of two people who had found each other against all odds and loved each other with everything they had. The ranch itself became known as a place where love and family were valued above all else, where hard work was expected but kindness was paramount, where the legacy of Yates and Olivia lived on in every fence post and building, in every horse trained with patience and skill, in every sunset watched from a porch built by loving hands. And sometimes, on warm summer evenings when the sky turned gold and crimson, people swore they could see two figures sitting on the porch of the old cabin, hands clasped, heads close together, watching the sunset one more time. Whether it was ghost or shadow or just the power of memory, no one could say for certain. But it was a comforting thought, the idea that Yates and Olivia were still together somewhere, still watching those sunsets, still loving each other with the same devotion that had defined their time on Earth. Their story became more than just family legend. It became a testament to the power of compassion, the beauty of love, and the importance of taking a chance on someone who needs help. Yates could have left Olivia in that dusty street. He could have let someone else deal with the sick stranger. But he had seen someone in need and responded with kindness, and that single act of compassion had changed both of their lives forever. The town of Shoshone City grew and changed over the years, but the Kirby Ranch remained a constant, a landmark that spoke of endurance and family, and the kind of love that builds empires out of nothing more than dedication and devotion. People would point it out to visitors, telling them about the cowboy who had cooled a fevered woman's brow and won her heart, about the love story that had started with an act of simple human kindness and grown into something extraordinary. And at the heart of it all, remembered and celebrated through generations, were two people who had found each other when they needed it most, who had built a life together on foundations of trust, respect, and abiding love, who had faced every challenge together and emerged stronger for it, who had proven that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places, and that love, when it is real and true and deep, can overcome any obstacle and last forever. Yates and Olivia Kirby. The cowboy and the woman with fever. Two souls who had found each other in the wild frontier of Idaho territory and created a legacy that would endure as long as there were people to remember their story and believe in the transforming power of love.